The Olympics are one of the largest events in the world. Summer Olympic Games, like the 2016 version in Rio, typically feature over 10,000 athletes from nearly every country. While host countries enjoy the benefits of higher tourism revenues and worldwide publicity, they also incur substantial costs, such as the housing and infrastructure for all the athletes, events, media, and tourists. Given these expenses, is hosting worth it? Let's begin by making a list of the benefits and costs of hosting the Olympics. An obvious benefit of hosting is that it attracts tourists, many of whom willingly pay high prices because of the uniqueness of the event. There is also publicity, which allows the host countries to shape its reputation worldwide. Even the buildup of infrastructure, which benefits the host by employing workers during its construction and improving conditions for locals after the games are over. The costs from hosting are the investments into infrastructure. Organizational costs such as event management, planning, and security. These costs have grown substantially in recent years in order to prevent terrorism. The Games will also displace normal economic activity due to traffic congestion and the movement of some resources toward management of the event. Ideally, we will put a dollar value on each category and compare the total benefits against the total cost to hosting. But this is difficult. One problem is that the benefits and costs do not all happen at the same time. Host countries can expect the benefit of tourism spending as soon as visitors arrive, but the impact of publicity and development of infrastructure can be long-term. A second problem is that the dollar value of each category is not always known prior to hosting the event. This is especially true for the Olympics because the decision to host starts years in advance of the Games with a bidding process to the International Olympic Committee, or IOC. As an example, the initial application to host the 2016 Summer Olympics was due almost 9 years prior in September of 2007. Finally, some of the categories are difficult to quantify. The long-run benefit of publicity is notoriously hard to isolate. For example, the camera shots of the host city could lead to future tourism from somebody currently watching at home, but it is hard to say when that will occur and how much to credit advertising during the Olympics. Displaced economic activity is also hard to pin down. Host cities are usually large, diverse economies who lose some business from the congestion of the Games. Alternatively, a lot of regular tourism will be displaced as those who were willing to come to Brazil without the Games will likely avoid coming during the Olympics due to high prices and congestion. Despite these obstacles, it is still possible to estimate economic impact of the Olympics. While each Olympic Games has a unique set of circumstances, economic impact estimates from previous Olympic Games can give us an idea of what to expect for future Games. One way studies estimate the effect of hosting is by analyzing an economic variable, like consumer spending, employment, or gross domestic product, before, during, and after the Games. The data are used to estimate the variable's path through time, so that any change from hosting can be identified against its typical path leading up to the event. It is important to note that this process estimates the net and not the gross change in the economic indicator. After all, the decision to host the Olympics should be compared to the expected level of economic activity without the Games. In this graph of monthly data, suppose an event happens during a peak month. This means the net effect is the difference between the actual value during the event and a prediction of the variable given it is a peak month. The math behind this process can get complicated, but most techniques create a prediction of the variable without the event. This way, a net effect can be estimated by comparing the actual to the prediction. So what does the research say about the economics of past Olympic Games? People will come, but don't expect it to make you rich. Studies of the 1996 Games in Atlanta, the 2000 Games in Sydney, and the 2002 Games in Salt Lake City found, at best, modest net increases in employment and consumer spending from hosting. These net increases typically disappear soon after the Games are over, suggesting no long-term bump from hosting the Games. In fact, some studies find no statistically discernible change at all. In short, while thousands travel to the Olympics, the Games also displace most and perhaps even all of the economic activity that would have happened anyway. Furthermore, even the most optimistic benefit estimates are far smaller than the typical infrastructure costs. Some Olympic infrastructure is incredibly specialized and sometimes has little or no practical use after the Games. Pictured here are venues from the 2002 Summer Games in Athens, taken in a 2014 article for The Guardian. Not to mention, infrastructure costs typically far exceed their projected budgets. A study by economists Robert Baade and Victor Matheson finds that every Olympic Games from 1968 to 2012 was over budget. It also notes two cases, the 1984 Games in Sarajevo and the 1976 Games in Montreal, where the actual costs were 10 times as high as originally projected. So overall, the research finds the net benefit from hosting has been, at best, small and temporary. Meanwhile, the costs are substantial and typically far larger than even the most optimistic benefit estimates. So why host the Games? Perhaps because countries are doing it for reasons other than money. For example, it could make locals happy. The opening ceremonies of the Olympics have become incredible showcases of a country's history and culture, broadcast throughout the world. The Olympics are a unique opportunity for a country to reintroduce itself to a global audience. Perhaps this is one reason why recent Olympic Games have been held in countries seeking greater influence in world politics, like China, Brazil, and Russia. Whatever the reason for submitting a bid to host the Olympic Games, economists agree that it is certainly not for the money. Thanks for watching.